Minutes before my 9-year-old daughter's school contest, my sister ripped her costume and dumped red paint all over it, sneering, "Now my girl will win for sure." My parents sided with my sister. I didn't shout. I did this. 30 minutes later, everyone was speechless because the outfit she destroyed that's the headline version of events. Sounds dramatic, right? Well, it was. It was the kind of day where your stomach knots itself into a ball and you can't decide if you're about to faint, scream, or laugh hysterically at the absurdity of it all. Spoiler, I did all three. But let me rewind for a second, because if you don't know what this school contest means, you won't understand the scale of what my sister tried to destroy every year. The school holds a creative arts contest. Picture a cross between a talent show, a costume parade, and a miniature Broadway production, only with cheaper lighting, and kids who can't always tie their shoelaces properly. The entire school attends, parents, teachers, the principal, grandparents with camcorders the size of bricks, the whole circus, and the winners. They get to represent the school at the district festival. That's a big deal when you're 9 years old. Honestly, it's a big deal when you're a mom too. For months, my daughter Maeve had been living and breathing this contest. It was her world. Forget Roblox, forget TikTok dances. All she talked about was her costume, her choreography, and how she wanted the judges to see how hard she'd worked. She's the kind of kid who will practice a spin until she falls over dizzy, then get up and do it again because it wasn't perfect. And the costume. Don't get me started. We had glitter in our cereal bowls, fabric scraps stuck to our socks, hot glue burns on my fingertips. I'd help with the tricky parts, but Maeve had designed it herself, a 9-year-old with a sketchbook and way too much determination. To her, this wasn't a school project. This was identity. This was her shot to stand on stage and scream silently to the world, "Look at me, I'm good enough." Which is why what happened next made my blood boil hotter than that glue gun. On the morning of the contest, Maeve was jittery, excited, nervous, all of it bubbling in her little frame. The school assigned her a private room to get ready and rehearse. She wanted to practice her routine one last time alone. And me, instead of hovering right outside the door, I gave her space. I stepped away for a few minutes, grabbed a bottle of water, chatted with another parent. I thought it was the right thing to do. So I wasn't there when it happened. When the door finally creaked open, I knew instantly something was wrong. Maeve stumbled out, eyes red, cheeks wet with tears, and her beautiful costume, her masterpiece, was dripping in red paint. It wasn't just splashed, either. It had been rubbed in, smeared across the fabric, so it sank into every seam. And the fabric itself was ripped jagged. I froze. My brain short-circuited for a second. I thought maybe she'd tripped and spilled paint on herself. That would have been bad enough. But the look in her eyes told me this was worse, much worse. "Mummer," she choked out between sobs. It was Aunt Mallory. She did it. Everything inside me dropped like a stone. My sister, my own sister. I grabbed her shoulders gently. "What do you mean she did it?" My voice was calm, but inside I was screaming. "She came in while I was practicing," Maeve sobbed. She said she couldn't finish. That was all I needed. My daughter's tears, her ruined costume, her broken voice. I felt heat rise in my chest, the kind of heat that makes you want to rip doors off their hinges. I stormed across the hallway, Maeve trailing behind me, and there was Mallory, perfectly composed, as if she hadn't just poured acid on a 9-year-old's dream. "You did this," I spat. Heads turned. Parents glanced over. Mallory widened her eyes, tilted her head, and played the innocent act like she was auditioning for the role of Mother Teresa. "Me," she said, eyebrows climbing. "Don't be ridiculous. Why would I ever do something like that? Because you're jealous," I thought. "Because your daughter's in the same contest, and you can't stand the idea of her losing." But saying it out loud would have been pointless. I leaned closer so only she could hear. Her perfume hit me in the nose. Sharp, fake, like her. And that's when she let her mask slip. Her lips curled in a smirk, and she whispered, "Now my girl will win for sure." I swear my hand shook with the effort not to slap her right there in front of everyone. Before I could unleash, a teacher appeared, fussing over Maeve's costume. The principal came, too. Parents murmured. Someone asked if Maeve would still perform. Mallory backed away, her innocent face firmly back in place. I wanted to scream. She had just admitted it. But what good would it do to everyone else? She was still the doting aunt. The principal cleared his throat. To keep things fair and on schedule, he said, Maeve will perform less. That way, she has extra time to make adjustments. Perform less. 30 minutes. That was all we had. Back in the room, Maeve collapsed on a chair, sobbing into her hands. Her costume looked like someone had taken a knife to it, then decided knives weren't fun enough, and grabbed paint for good measure. The red was streaked deep into the fabric, rubbed in so hard it looked deliberate, because it was. I wanted to scream or break something, maybe both. Instead, I sat down across from her, hands gripping my knees, and said, "Tell me exactly what happened." Her face crumpled. She came in while I was practicing. I thought she was just looking, and then she pressed her palms together like she was squeezing the memory into words. She ripped it and dumped the paint, and she rubbed it in so it couldn't be fixed. She smiled. She said. Maeve stopped, sobs catching in her throat. I waited. Sometimes silence works better than questions. Her voice came out small. She said, "Better get used to losing, sweetheart." There it was, the cruelty in plain words. I could almost hear Mallory's voice saying it low and cutting, the kind of remark designed to lodge in a 9-year-old's chest forever. I swallowed hard, because if I spoke right then, it wouldn't have been words, it would have been fire. And this is where my mind flicked backward, because I knew that voice. I'd been listening to versions of it my whole life. When we were kids, Mallory got the spotlight. Always beauty pageants, dance recital, choir solos. She was dressed up, cheered on, praised for every step she took. Me, I was told it wasn't. For me, maybe you shouldn't try. You don't want to embarrass yourself. Not everyone's cut out for that kind of thing. You're better off watching. They didn't say it like insults. They said it like advice. Like they were saving me from disappointment. I believed them. I stopped asking. After a while, the thought of raising my hand to volunteer made my skin crawl. Mallory sparkled. I stayed in the background and I told myself that's just the way it was. Years later, when Maeve was born, I promised myself she would never grow up like that. I told her she was smart, creative, funny. I cheered for her scribbles like they were Rembrandt. When she danced around the living room, I clapped like she'd just won a medal. But families have long memories, and mine, well, some things never change. When Mahler's daughter was encouraged, she was showered with, "You're beautiful and you'll win for sure." When Maeve showed interest, she got, "Are you sure?" A lot of people will be watching, or you don't want to end up in last place. Do you? They didn't say it to hurt her. That's the worst part. They said it the same way they'd always said it to me, as if they were just being realistic. The moment that still stuck in my throat a few weeks earlier. Maeve had been so excited. She begged to show everyone her full routine, costume, and doll. We gathered in my parents' living room. Maeve pressed play on a little speaker, twirled in her homemade costume, and went through her whole act. Every spin, every step, every bit of drama she'd practiced in the mirror for weeks. She finished panting, cheeks flushed, eyes bright, waiting for applause. Her cousin sat there, arms crossed, looking like someone had just stolen her dessert. Mahler's smile was thin as paper. My parents gave Maeve a polite clap and a tight little, "That's fine, dear, that's fine." I saw Maeve's shoulders drop. She forced a smile. But she knew, kids always know. I told myself, maybe I imagined it, maybe I was reading too much into it. But deep down, I knew what I saw, jealousy and the same old favoritism I'd grown up choking on. And now here we were, Maeve broken, her costume destroyed, Mallory's words still hanging in the air like smoke. I leaned forward. Maeve, when she came in, were you filming? She blinked at me, confused. What? Your phone? You've been filming your practices all week. Did you have it on? Her mouth dropped open. I think yes. I put it on the table so I could watch later. We both froze. Then I scrambled for her bag, yanked out her little phone, and swiped until the recording came up, and there it was. The video was angled low from where the phone was propped, but it caught everything. Mallory slipping into the room, the sharp sound of fabric tearing, the wet splash of paint, her hand smearing it down, deliberate, and her voice clear as day. Better get used to losing. Sweetheart, I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. Maeve covered her mouth with both hands, watching herself cry on the screen. Proof. We finally had proof. For years, Mallory's cruelty had been brushed off as accidents, misunderstandings, exaggerations, but this was undeniable. Recorded, permanent. I felt something inside me shift. Not relief, not victory, just a cold, solid certainty. Maeve looked at me, her eyes huge. What do we do? Her voice cracked again, and for a second, she looked so small. I wanted to scoop her up and never let her face the world again. Instead, I placed the phone down carefully and took her hand. We're not quitting, I said. My voice surprised me. Steady, firm, like it belonged to someone who actually had a plan. But my costume. I squeezed her hand. We'll deal with it. You're still going on that stage. Her chin trembled. She wanted to believe me. She didn't. Not yet. I forced a smile, though my own stomach was twisted into knots. Trust me, we're not done here. The clock was running. 30, maybe 40 minutes. That was all we had. Maeve sat slumped in the chair, her hands limp in her lap. The costume hung off her, torn, paint dripping onto the tile. Her face was blotchy from crying. I knelt down, put my hands on hers. We've got time, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. She shook her head. It's over. No, I told her. We're not done. And that was it. No speech, no plan I could spell out. Just a decision. We weren't giving up. The rest, well, that stays between me and Maeve. We worked. We made choices. By the time her name was called, we had something, not perfect, not polished, but something. When the lights dropped, my throat went dry. The projector flickered on. The video filled the stage. The shaky angle caught Mallory stepping into the prep room, her hand yanking at fabric, the sound of ripping clear as a scream, the splash of paint, the smear of her palm grinding it into the seams, and her voice, dripping with malice. Better get used to losing. Sweetheart. The words echoed through the hall. Gasps spread like a ripple. Heads turned. Parents shifted, whispering. Teachers frowned. And then Maeve walked out. The whispers stopped. Her costume should have been ruined. Everyone knew it. But under the lights, it didn't look ruined anymore. The tears in the fabric had been shaped into jagged lines. The paint streaks blazed across her chest like fire. She looked fierce. The music began. The same track she'd practiced for months. May have lifted her chin, took her first step. It was her routine. Every spin, every drop, every move. She drilled again and again. But now it was more. Every motion carried what had happened. When she spun, it was defiance. When she dropped low, it was hurt. When she rose again, it was survival. The audience leaned forward. No one coughed. No one whispered. They were caught. I glanced at Mallory. She was 3 rows ahead of me. Her jaw clenched, her face frozen. Maeve's body hit every beat. The routine was familiar, but layered with something raw and new. She wasn't performing pretty. She was performing truth. By the final sequence, the hall was silent. She hit her last spin, dropped low, and rose with her arms wide, the costume glowing like embers under the spotlight. And then silence. You could hear her breath across the microphone. Heavy, real. For a moment, no one moved. Then the first clap cracked the silence. Another followed. And then the whole room erupted. Parents stood. Teachers clapped until their hands were red. Kids shouted her name. Maeve stood there, chest heaving, eyes shining, a 9-year-old in a ripped painted costume, standing taller than anyone else in the room. And in that roar of applause, I knew one thing: this wasn't over, because what came next left us all speechless. The clapping was still going when Maeve walked off stage. Cheeks flushed, hair wild, eyes wide like she wasn't sure if she'd just lived it or dreamed it. I held her. She clung back, shaking, but her body was buzzing, too, like she'd swallowed lightning. But applause fades. I know that. What doesn't fade is the family staring holes through your back. Mallory sat 3 rows ahead, her jaw clenched so hard I thought her teeth might crack. My parents sat beside her, stiff as stone, lips pinched into those tight little lines I knew too well, the same look they used to give me when I embarrassed the family, which could mean anything from crying in public to daring to exist in Mallory's shadow. So, while Maeve was glowing from her standing ovation, I was waiting for the knife to twist. And I didn't have to wait long. The jury slipped out to deliberate. The audience buzzed. But my focus stayed locked on my family. Mallory didn't speak, didn't move. My parents leaned in toward her, whispering. She nodded once, like they were plotting. I thought, of course, even now, after everything. 15 minutes of silence stretched like an hour. Maeve chewed her lip raw. I held her hand, my other hand shook, but I hid it in my lap. When the jury returned, everyone hushed. The head judge cleared her throat. We want to make it clear that our decision is based on merit, performance, creativity, not sympathy. My stomach twisted and first place goes to Maeve. The room exploded again. Parents cheering, teachers clapping, kids shouting. Maeve stared at me like she couldn't believe it. I smiled, nodded, whispered, "Go on." She leapt up to accept, her little trophy gleaming under the lights. But while the hall roared, my eyes stayed on Mallory. Her daughter's name wasn't called. Instead, the judge added, "Due to misconduct, Mallory's child is disqualified. This matter will be reported." It was like watching a mask slip. Mallory froze. Her daughter burst into tears. And my parents, God bless them, sat there looking like someone had just slapped them. Not Mallory, them. That's how it always was. Her humiliation was theirs. Her loss was theirs. Their golden girl shamed. And they couldn't stand it. And me, for once, I didn't feel sorry. Not an ounce. Later that night, when Maeve was asleep, still clutching that trophy like it was a shield, my phone rang. My mother. I almost didn't answer. I knew what was coming. But some stupid part of me thought, maybe, just maybe, they'll say, "We're proud of her." I picked up. "How could you do that to your sister?" I laughed. Not the nice kind, a sharp, bitter sound that surprised even me. "You mean how could she do that to your granddaughter?" "You humiliated Mallory," my mother snapped, in front of everyone. She ripped Maeve's costume apart and rubbed paint into it. I shot back. "She told a 9-year-old to get used to losing. And you're worried about Mallory's feelings." There was a pause. Then my father's voice, flat as ever. "Family business stays in the family. You don't air it in public." There it was, the old script. I could have recited it with them. "Don't embarrass us. Don't make noise. Pretend everything's fine while you swallow the hurt." Something inside me cracked open. Or maybe it finally closed. I said very clearly, "If you can watch that video and still defend her, then you are no family to me or to Maeve." My mother gasped. My father tried to bluster something about loyalty. I hung up. My hands were shaking. But it wasn't fear. It was relief. I sat at the kitchen table after, staring at the dark window. The phone was still in front of me, silent now. I thought about the years I'd spent trying to win their approval, all the swallowed words, the times I told myself they were just being honest, the times I convinced myself Mallory deserved the stage, and I didn't. And tonight, watching them, side with her after she destroyed their granddaughter's work, I finally saw it for what it was. Not honesty, not tough love, just cruelty wrapped in tradition. They chose her again, and I chose Maeve. That's the line. That's the rebellion. Maeve won a trophy that night. But what mattered more was what she showed them and what I finally showed myself. Mallory tried to break her. My parents tried to shame me back into silence. Instead, Maeve stood taller than all of them in a costume smeared with red paint and defiance. And I cut ties with a family that had never truly protected either of us. They thought they could destroy her moment. Instead, they destroyed whatever hold they still had over me. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. 6 months later, I wasn't speaking to my parents or to Mallory. But I didn't need to. The updates found me anyway. I heard Mallory's daughter had to transfer schools. She walked into the cafeteria every day with whispers chasing her heels. Kids hissing, "That's her mom," under their breath. By Thanksgiving, the invitations to birthdays and sleepovers had dried up completely. By Christmas, Mallory pulled her out. And then there were the charges. I filed the report myself the day after the contest. Not out of spite, out of principle. My daughter deserved to know that what happened to her was not just family drama. It was a crime. The police agreed. With the video in hand, Mallory was charged with criminal mischief, a misdemeanor vandalism charge, and child endangerment. Court came and went. She stood there, forced to listen to her own voice played over the speaker system. Better get used to losing. Sweetheart, I almost wished I'd been there to watch her face. The sentence, 2 years probation, $150 of community service, $1,000 fine, plus restitution for Maeve's destroyed costume. Mandatory counseling, not prison, but not nothing either. Enough to stain her record. Enough to remind her every week when she picked up a trash bag on the side of the road. From what I heard, she lost more than that. Parents she used to charm now cross the street. To avoid her, neighbors cut ties. Her perfect reputation, the golden child glow she carried since we were kids, gone. My parents, they still sided with her, said the charges were harsh, that I'd taken it too far. I stopped answering their calls. Maeve still has her trophy. She doesn't display it. She keeps it shoved in a drawer under notebooks and pencils. But sometimes I see her pull it out, hold it for a second, then tuck it back away, not because she needs reminding, because she already knows. She stood on that stage, broken costume and all, and didn't bend. Mallory wanted her to lose. Instead, she taught her how to fight. And me, I finally learned how to stop losing, too. So, what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments.